Okay, thank you very much, Sir Rofianto, and very, very pleased to be here and very grateful for inviting me and the rest of my team from the Philippines. I'm presenting here right now this thing of the greening expenditures, the Philippine National Infrastructure Program. Okay, so the outline is here on the screen. I'll just be briefly, in a way, summarizing what's the medium-term Philippine 8-point socioeconomic agenda. And then from there, I'll be speaking about the fiscal framework. And then the heart of the matter will be on the Build Better More program of our country, specifying the green infrastructure programs. And then I'll just be summarizing it with the things that we are planning to do in the near term. Okay, so this is the 8-point Philippine socioeconomic agenda. So the overall goal is to reinvigorate job creation and poverty reduction by steering the economy back to its high growth path, and more importantly, through economic transformation for a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient society. So although many uncertainties abound covering health, recovering learning losses from COVID-19, environmental and global trade, and finance trends, the challenges are not insurmountable. The reforms laid down by past administrations have paved pathways for the incoming administration to pursue opportunities for accelerating economic transformation. Such reforms can be deepened to build stronger foundations for a more robust, more inclusive, and more resilient Philippine society. The Philippine Development Plan from 2023 to 2028 will focus on 8-point agenda, where a number of strategies are intended to address the immediate issues of inflation, socioeconomic scarring, and low income. And here you will see the first three, but there's no green here yet. I think it comes here in number 6. Well, currently we're having this issue on the inflation, and I think it's something that is shared by most of the countries in the region. But the idea here is, well, we have tried to do some quick fix, and we have done some unprecedented policies like cash transfers, especially for those segments of our society who are really in need, and to provide them with needed support just to somehow be able to sustain themselves during these inflationary times. But we know that it's not something that is sustainable over the long term. So the focus was to really create jobs. No? What could be more depressing is when you find prices going up and then you don't have any job. No? So it's important that we try to facilitate this issue. And I think lately in the reports last quarter, we have done good efforts here, and it showed that our unemployment rate has gone down to 5% from 8.9% of last year. So there's a great improvement here, but we still need more. Okay, so here we are seeing create more jobs, create quality jobs, and create green jobs. So special attention will be given to the development of sustainable technologies to create green jobs. These green jobs are those, or say anything that pertains to green investment in the environment, agriculture, research and development, renewable energy. So the strategies on creating more jobs, quality jobs, and green jobs will be supported by the enhanced implementation of the national competition policy and the accelerated operationalization of amended laws governing foreign investments. All the above strategies will be founded on a peaceful and orderly society where human rights and economic, socio-cultural rights are observed. Our sovereignty and territorial integrity will likewise be upheld. So I'll move now to this thing of the medium-term fiscal framework so as to put the overview on how we see our economy doing in the next, you say 6 years, 5 to 6 years. So our targets are these ones: real GDP growth in 2022, 6.5 to 7.5%, real GDP growth annually between 2023 to 2028, between 6.5 to 8%, poverty rate, single digit by 2028. At the moment, we are at 18%, so still a long way to go, okay? And then NG deficit to GDP ratio by 2028 is 3%. Currently, we are at 7.6 deficit to GDP ratio. We have achieved 3% before, just before the outbreak of the pandemic, and we will have to do more in this regard, no, to bring it down to pre-pandemic level of 3% by 2028. Our NG debt to GDP ratio by 2025 to be less than 60%. And then, of course, the aspiration of being part of the upper middle income countries within the medium term. So that means our GNI to be greater than or equal $4,256. Okay, so the idea of this slide here is to show you that we are doing some cost cutting. This is our fiscal consolidation path. And also to show you that our government is trying to stop this thing of spending spree, okay, which happened during the pandemic. In fact, it went up to 24% of GDP in 2020 or 2021. So right now, the program for 2022 is 22.9 disbursement of or expending as percent of GDP, and then to bring it down gradually over the medium term. And this is supported by our good forecast on the revenue, which is going up to 17.6% of GDP by 2028. And here also, we put the very important ingredient, the infrastructure program. So it's hovering around 5.5 to 6.2% of GDP over the medium term. And as you can see down below, the deficit is improving. We hope to improve it and reach the 3% of GDP by 2028. So the basic idea here is really to cut down on spending and to really find ways of getting more money for the government so that we'll be able to support the infrastructure program. Okay, so here is the Build Better More program of the government. So recognizing that infrastructure is the backbone of the economy, the administration will continue to expand the Build, Build, Build program, sustaining the momentum of public infrastructure boom and aspiring to build better more. Well, this is a tagline that we are using right now in the government, Build Better More. Actually, this is the initials of our current president. No? So that's in the Philippines, we do it a lot of times, no? So that it's easy to remember BBM. No? But before it was just build, build, build. So now we put that qualifier, better, meaning more quality buildings, okay? More quality infrastructure, not just quantity. Okay, so the planning and budgeting linkage. So this is how we do things in the Philippines, no? So first is the vision. We have the Philippine Development Plan over the medium term, and that sets the direction. In particular, here is the infrastructure sector. So that plan somehow gives that kind of orientation for what we are planning to do, okay? And then from there, the line agencies would start proposing programs and projects. And this will come up with this thing of the public investment program. So you could imagine the public investment program is a set of projects proposed by our line agencies. So these are like wish lists, no? Like letters to Santa Claus during Christmas. So you could imagine that this is really bloated. No? And that's why there's a need to evaluate them, because many of these projects are not even part of the Philippine Development Plan. So it's just because this is what they want to have or to do in in their agency. Okay, so there's an evaluation that has to be done there, and then from there, from that set of PIP, public investment program, so it's being narrowed down, and we form this subset which we call 3-year rolling infrastructure program. So these are the evaluated programs, and these are concrete programs and projects that will be implemented by these agencies, and we can be sure that this is aligned with the plan and somehow grounded on reality that this could be accommodated by the budget, no? Because the public investment program surely cannot accommodate everything there. Because, as again, it's just a wish list, no? So if you check your pocket, you see that only this set, 3-year rolling infrastructure program, could be accommodated. So somehow that sets the pace on how we do also budgeting when it comes to the infrastructure sector. So we just look at the 3-year rolling program, 3-year rolling infrastructure program. Okay, so this slide is on financing our infrastructure program. So you see, of course, bulk of that financing will come from the treasury revenues. Okay, some will be coming from loans, but right now, part of our commitment to lower our debt to GDP ratio over the medium term, so we have to stop or minimize borrowing from outside, no? And so we are actually somehow resolved to really tap the participation of the private sector through the PPP, okay? And this is the main thrust of the current administration now, to really collaborate with the private sector, especially for big tickets infrastructure projects. Okay, so I'm showing you here the profile of our 2023 infrastructure budget. Okay, so the total amount is to the tune of 1.199 trillion. Okay, and that's 5% of GDP. And you see here that the lion's share is taken by the road networks. No? We still, not so much really on building new roads, but also on the refurbishing or re-strengthening of these roads. And then also another big component here would be on the flood control system, okay? More on the adaptation part, okay? This thing of risk resiliency. Development fund of LGUs or local government unit. This is really also very important for us because, as you know, when we build roads, somehow you have that bias to build them for the cities, okay? And it makes sense because there's a lot of economic activity there. But having that kind of mindset would just simply leave behind those rural areas, no? Which may not have really a good chances of making economic activity. So it likes a chicken and egg problem. So it's important that we really have to allocate budget for the local governments because they are more on the ground. They know what's happening there in their communities and really the needs that they would want to have at the current moment. So not only on the NG, on the national government, but actually promoting this kind of devolution, the task being transferred to the local governments. And that's why it's in the top 3, okay? So in fact, we are also giving them more money from the national tax, tax revenues that we are getting every year. And of course, the railways, because this is part of our, this thing of the mitigation part of climate change. You have here also infrastructure or social infrastructure. So 16.8 billion for hospital and health centers, 13.9 billion for school buildings, and 2.5 billion for housing and community facilities. Okay, so here is a slide that pertains to this issue on infrastructure asset management. So we also need to maintain them, those infrastructure facilities that we currently have. And the idea is to operationalize an asset management system to ensure the cost-effective management of assets by analyzing the life cycle, capacity, and utilization of non-financial assets individually and collectively, and to maximize government funds by targeting scarce resources to the most critical asset needs. So here, the focus is given to the critical and strategically important non-financial assets of the government. So critical assets are those that if were to fail unexpectedly, would have a severe consequence on the community or their users. So we cannot allow, so to say, these things to happen. That's why we also need this aspect of asset management. Okay. Okay, I think this is important. This is the green part now of my presentation, promoting green and sustainable infrastructure. Notice here that we have included this in the general provisions of our yearly General Appropriations Act. So this is just an example for 2022, but in fact, this is stipulated every year, no, whenever we conduct this budget call. So, for example, I just want to read it here, the bullet points. Consistent with the rules determined by the Department of Public Works and Highways, which shall consider the required structural strength and climate and disaster resilience, and shall consider climate data and risk assessment and green building standards in the design, construction, and renovation of government buildings and facilities. So in other words, when the line agencies would propose some projects to the budget ministry, we will have to evaluate them. And one criteria for judging would be these stipulated provisions in our General Appropriations Act. So meaning you will get the budget if you follow these provisions. It's not necessarily you will be, perhaps there will be high chances that your project will not be accommodated if you don't follow these things, but it's more of giving more points, no, or premium if you follow these instructions given by the national government. And here at the bottom, it says their installation of rainwater collection system in public markets, school sites, and government buildings and sites as an adaptation measures to combat climate change and ensure sufficient water supply. So it's something like becoming automatic. Whenever you build a public market or school site or school building or government building, you have to make sure that there's a rainwater collection system. So something like this is being provided in our General Appropriations Act. Another one is, for example, this statement. Government should implement projects incorporating risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and where feasible, climate change mitigation. And then here, all national government projects should be subjected to multi-scenario probabilistic risk assessment as well as adaptation and mitigation planning. And then finally, it says here, agencies shall likewise integrate energy-saving solutions and consider climate resilience in planning and implementation of all infrastructure projects, office programs and activities, as well as assess their organizational carbon footprints and pursue appropriate emission reduction measures to mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. Okay, so this has to be like the guiding line, the guiding line for our evaluators in the Department of Budgets whenever they scrutinize projects and programs that are being submitted by the line agencies. Okay, here also the aspect of energy efficiency measures. So it is even specifically stated here, okay? So the Department of Energy's Energy Conservation Program, the level of thermostat, by the way, it's also indicated, okay? And then also the use of light LED lamps in their office buildings, school buildings, hospitals, markets, parks, street lights, and other public places. Okay, so just to end my presentations, I just want to summarize it here. So the Philippines has seen high growth and poverty reduction in the last 15 years, yet it continues to face several development challenges brought about by uh, being this thing of vulnerability to natural disasters and the effects of climate change. So the impact of COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted existing weaknesses in the country's infrastructure, facilities, and services. Notwithstanding, infrastructure development remains a key pillar in the country's pursuit to become a high-income country and its recovery from the pandemic given its multiplier effect on employment generation and economic activities. Therefore, it is crucial to attentively plan and implement sustainable and holistic infrastructure plans, programs, and projects to steer our development towards our objectives. So here, our main thrust is to come up with our master plan on the infrastructure sector. So a single national policy on master plan is urgently needed to harmonize and streamline the government's master planning process. This policy aims to ensure that master plans are updated and responsive to the emerging needs of the country while remaining consistent with established national priorities and strategic direction of the government. This policy is proposed to aid the government in the conduct of cohesive planning, programming, and budgeting for the development, implementation, and monitoring of holistic master plans in our infrastructure sector. So that's all, and thank you for your time.